I am trying to get ready to join your chat channel. Meanwhile, why don't you invite your friends, relatives, and families? Don't hesitate to share the information at your social media channels and also send SMS message via WhatsApp Telegram signal. Hello everybody, Dr. Zero show right now is going to connect to Cambridge University to Associate Researcher Didem Gürdür-Broo. Welcome Didem, how are you?
Hello, thank you, Serdar. I'm fine. How are you?
Fine. Pleasure to have you again, and I really want to talk about robots. Still, when I find an expert, because when I was child, there was this Voltron. Was it Voltron the name? I really liked to watch them, and then we had these Autobots. It was again fantastic, and I still watch Transformers. So when I see somebody who knows, so I feel excited, even though I don't do anything about robots right now. So do you have
Perfect.
this type of toys?
I had lots of toys. When I was growing up, some people give me gifts like dolls, which I had no interest to play with them. To me, it was just like not interesting because they don't move, they don't talk, you cannot drive them. So I always
Yeah.
took my brother's cars and balls and anything with electronics. I was known to find a place and use my dad's screwdrivers to open the car to check inside and so on. I was quite a weird child. Now that you are saying,
You are not weird. Maybe we were weird that we have this prejudgment to give some specific toys to some kids and some different type of specific
exactly,
toys to others without actually trying to understand what they are interested in.
exactly.
Yes.
I'm hoping it is not happening anymore in 2021. We should be already
Yeah,
away from this kind of
I agree.
thinking.
Also, I think for we should we can try to raise interest of the technology not only to one gender but every kid that are interested, and provide them opportunity, because the way you raise also influence their future in the in life, also their future in the job market, in the academia. So when
Exactly.
we come back to robots, so you try to convince me that we shouldn't be scared from robots. I
I
am
did,
still
yes, last
I
time.
am still hesitant to be convinced, but maybe you can share with us what can we do so that we can have a nice life with robots, that they can be part of our lives, but at the same time I don't lose control of robots, so that the robots at home cannot be hacked by somebody else that can kill me. Hypothetically, like, it doesn't have to be real life robot, but there are robots everywhere that collects the data, this and that connects the door. Let's say we don't say them robots, but we have these alarm systems. What if alarm system is locked and I cannot go out? It closes everything. So what can we do to avoid this type of issues?
Exactly. I mean, each one of us have different roles, right? As a researcher, I work on these applications. What I try to do is to make the design and the development and also later operations of this type of systems, robots or another type of cyber physical systems, to be more inclusive,
Mm-hmm.
to have a purpose that will somehow contribute to the public good, and it will not be biased, it will be equal for everyone, and it will be possible to be used or to benefit life of everyone. As citizens, what can we do? We need to be more interested and engaged with these systems development. We need to ask companies, generally technology companies, but also other type of companies are entering the robotics sector now, to be diverse, so everyone can be able to work in these companies. They bring also what they know about the world. They bring their different perspectives. Then we can talk about less biases in these applications. For instance, robots sometimes use face recognition. But we know from other applications where artificial intelligence is used for face recognition that there are lots of biases, which makes really bad decision when it comes to different skin colors. So as citizens, we can ask these companies to employ more diverse employees. Then we need to ask these applications to be inclusive, to be equal, to be approachable by any of us. We need to understand how they build these technologies. It is becoming so complex that no one is able to explain how we build a robot. But without the citizens understanding what they are, how they function, and why we have them, it is surely difficult to accept them in our daily lives.
But as a citizen, how can I understand it? Because you need to have an like variety array of knowledge from electronics to mechanics to engineering, electricity engineering.
Yes.
How can I have like the computer science? So let's say I am an ordinary guy that is working in different domain in a restaurant. How what can I? Because it is beyond my knowledge, but at the same time it influences my life. How I can utilize it? How can I defend myself, or how I can influence that development in robot can be in the positive direction, but not in negative direction?
Yeah, I see your point. I think one thing that we need to keep in mind, Serdar, is that these applications, these robots, will not be part of our lives quite soon yet. The robot that I have in my house is a robot vacuum cleaner, and my cat sometimes sits on it and they do the cleaning together. So
Really?
it
Sits on
is.
it. Not escaping. Okay. So travel with the robot.
I, I, I am happy that it helps me with cleaning. That is one thing, but I don't expect anything else from that robot. Okay, it is smart in a sense that it cleans my house nicely, but
That's the
that's the only
purpose.
thing. That's the purpose of it, that's the limitation of it, and that's what I expect from it to do. So our relation is limited on that. And when we think about what the future will look like and how we will engage with robots, we can have lots of different scenarios in our mind. But currently the robots are working in manufacturing, automotive sector. They do repetitive tasks very fast and very efficiently. They can carry and rotate huge, quite heavy frames and so on. They are as we last time talked, in warehouse settings, carrying stuff around, counting, weighing, and so on. So, as a common citizen, probably we will not be working with them every day. And the people who will work with them will work, as I said, like my vacuum robot cleaner, is we will only have limited relationship for a specific action. And I am hoping that this will evolve in time. So when we have more robots in our daily lives, we will also learn more about how they function and what is their limits and what is our relationship with them. Otherwise, we don't need to know how they really function in a sense that what is the code running, what is the electronic or mechanical units there. We don't know that for cars either, even though
Yes,
some men
you're
think
right.
we know. We
You're
don't
right.
know it anymore.
But for cars, for example, you gave perfect example just to show how strange question that I had. But when you relate it to example, it directly makes sense. But then for the car industry, we demand to have these rules and regulations for the traffic, the speed limit, and then some checks. You need to be qualified to drive the car, and then to mechanics, and then there are different institutions and standards that the cars are tested. Do you think these type of tests are in place for the robots right now? Like they take robots, is there any institution that checks whether the code of this robot will harm anybody or not?
It depends in what domain they are, but industrial robots have this, and they also need to follow the safety standards.
Okay.
Similarly, the robots that we can have in our house, like the vacuum cleaner, is called an electronic appliance, and there is also standardization. So I know that it will not give electricity to my cat and it will not kill my cat and so on. So there are standards, but they are also evolving because um, you know how these things work. Unless you need it, you don't have it. So now we are starting to need these standardizations and mechanisms. So on one hand, we are building them also.
Yes. Also, so which means you inspired me in one way. Like you don't have to know it, but you can be the other side as a user to complain and claim and demand these are the things should be in place. So I can say, okay, for example, basically, I don't need to about robots to tell them that, oh, if you have a vacuum cleaner, robots shouldn't kill my small animal at home. So it is very
Exactly.
legit demand that I can ask because it's part of my life and I don't need to know about robots. Perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thank you very
So
much for
are you
joining.
going?
Please, burayı keserim. Sen
Uh,
söyle.
okay. So are you going to have a robot soon, Serdar? Can I manage to convince you?
For vacuum cleaner, you convince me. For vacuum cleaner, I should check. The prices are not that high right now, and I think vacuum cleaner will really relax me. I really need to be sure that, but who cares? Because the data of my surface is already available everywhere. Like because they will be AI. But these vacuum cleaners, since you are already here, do they learn by hitting the walls, the dimension of my home, so they can clean better every time?
Exactly. Now, yes, exactly. Now the new versions of these robots are able to learn from their mistakes. So every time
Really?
they become better and better. Yeah, exactly.
But then
Isn't it
I hope
wonderful?
it is wonderful. Great. I hope they didn't teach them to climb over the bed. Imagine I am sleeping and the robots run. What are you doing? Cleaning. It is dirty. Your clothes are dirty.
Not yet.
Not
You
yet.
are saying so that.
Thank you very much for joining from Cambridge, and I wish you have a nice day. It is
Thank you
great to
very
talk
much.
to you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Dr. Zero right now will join to Belgrade. We had our guest from Belgrade before, Danica. Welcome again. How are you?
Hi, Serdar. Doing well. Thanks. How are you?
Fine, fine. Last time I forgot to tell you, but I like your background. It looks very cool. What is there? What is it behind you?
My background, I'm actually a little bit outside of Belgrade in my family home that I inherited from my parents. And I'm up in my attic office, and those are pictures of my kids and family, and my parents up there, and my brother. And those are that back there, right there, where is it? Is a photo that I picked up with my husband on holiday in Montenegro. And some of the other art that you barely see in the corner is my
A little bit.
husband's
Yeah.
art that he did in college. So
Wow.
I am surrounded in my home office, and my son's artwork is over there on that wall, and my daughter's artwork is up here too. So up here in my office, I'm surrounded by my family and their work and their creativity,
The family
to
arts.
remind me of, yes, to remind me of why I work.
Perfect. Wonderful. That window, does it look like outside? Does it look to outside or inside the building?
Yeah, that actually, it looks to the outside, but it looks straight onto our roof. That side over here, you can't see right here to my right. I
No.
have another window, and I'm looking at a gorgeous, at just the last rays of a gorgeous sunset over the mountains here in Serbia.
Oh, I hope to see that art plays in these windows, hopefully
Yeah,
next time.
you're welcome to visit whenever you're in or around Belgrade.
After this crazy new normal ends.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You
When we're
are,
free, finally.
yes, hopefully. We know each other for a long time, and I know you are an entrepreneur, but you didn't get entrepreneurship education. You are self-taught entrepreneur that learned everything from the market. But now you are actually invited by the universities, companies. You provide training, education. You are guest lecturer in many institutions. So I just wonder, do we do, as people who teach in the academia, good job to teach people entrepreneurship when it comes to experience that you have in the reality?
Yeah, okay. Your questions are always on point and fantastic and very easy to answer. So here's your
Thank you.
answer. Your answer is yes and no. Do you do some
Which one
great
is
things?
yes, which one
Yes.
is no?
All
So
right. All right. So here's the thing.
should I be happy or unhappy?
All right, so you can always do better. But all right, so first let me address what you called self-taught. Obviously, I had a lot of help along the way, and so here's the thing. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I come from a very long line on my father's side of entrepreneurs. Almost all of them were small and micro business owners, many of them in the trades. My grandfather was a baker who owned his own bakery and so on and so forth. My father was, I would call it, a consultant in sports. I would say a freelancer. What my father did was he was a conditioning coach for soccer teams in Europe and the Middle East. But he worked 1, 2, 3, 5 year contracts. So I also learned from him in terms of how you build your career, how you keep learning while you're working to stay relevant in an industry, especially in a fast-paced, highly competitive industry like sports. Um, so I learned a lot from my past. I paid attention. But the most I mean, you can't beat experience, right? I learned the most from the many, many, many mistakes that I made. So yes, some people consider me an expert, and I like that definition of being what is an expert? It's a person who's made every possible mistake in a certain industry or certain field. And yes, that would be me. I started several businesses over the last 20 years. Most of them failed, many of them because of me, because of where I went wrong, because of the partners that I chose, because of where I decided to start these businesses. So one thing that I would really recommend is you're going to make mistakes in business. You're going to make mistakes in life, in relationships, and everything. What's really important for business, though, is analysis. In every quarter, in every year, in every failed or successful business, you need to go back and look and say, what could I have done differently? I don't care how bad the market was. I don't care if a pandemic hit. I don't care what happened. You need to go back and ask the question, how could I have done better? What could I have done differently? You know what? You have to set your ego aside and do that and really look at where was it your fault, or where could you have done better? Um, so that's really important. And frankly, mistakes are what's not being taught in schools. I look at universities. I have a very dear friend who does some great case studies studying with her students, and that's all fantastic. But where are the case studies of the businesses that failed?
Mm-hmm.
Where are the case studies of why big companies are shutting down? This is what you should be teaching your students. The big companies, especially in today's day and age, so many retail chains shutting down. Why? Why couldn't they be the next Amazon? Where did they go wrong? What did they not accept? What did they not change? How did they not adapt?
Mm-hmm.
Because in business and in entrepreneurship, adaptation is central, just like in human evolution. So yeah, that's what's missing, the mistakes, studying the mistakes.
So can you please give example? Like we just say, okay, these are failed because they couldn't adapt the change. But how should we study these mistakes? Should we go more in depth to understand the mistakes that they have done, the decision that they took, or can we provide an environment that students actually can fail a couple of times? Like, can we create a fail-free environment that they test some ideas, but not only from the books? So, what do you suggest? What
Right,
should we
both.
do?
Both. There are case studies, like we already have the mechanisms and the approach for successful businesses, and let's do a case study or marketing campaigns or whatever it is. We do case studies of successful things. We can also go in and analyze and frankly do a post-mortem of mistakes or even companies that survived but that made this mistake, but how did they survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
A great example, just a really quick example, is a company here in Serbia that I use all the time, manufacturer of juices and water. I'm not going to mention the company's name. It was privately owned. This guy and his team, they built it up. It was one of the biggest companies in that sector in the country, and they wanted to expand to the European market and then possibly the global market. I'll tell you right away, looking at dissecting at where they went wrong, it's really easy to see where they went wrong. But it's also a mistake that is frequently made here. Where they went wrong is they got the orders in, they poured millions into advertising in Europe. They started getting the orders in. Well, you know what? Their manufacturing capacity wasn't up to par, and they couldn't get it up to par fast enough. So again, very easy to take a look at and analyze and learn from that.
So do
But
you
so
mean
the
that
post-mortem,
they didn't have a problem to get the order? Their problem was they got too much order that they can handle. So it is a growth problem that they couldn't manage.
yeah, and they lost the company. The
Wow.
company ended up in debt because of it, and they ended up having to sell it. Yeah. So the second thing that you could be doing is that's fantastic, a fantastic idea is let them make mistakes. You know, like in many high schools around the world or even elementary schools, we give kids either an egg to take care of for a week or, you know, a fake baby, or we do it on paper and say like, you know, do a schedule for who's watching the baby and who's watching this and who's watching that. Home economics. Which, by the way, should be back in schools immediately for everyone, for all genders and all
Yeah, we
ages.
don't have it right now,
But
isn't it?
oh, I happen to think that entrepreneurship and basic finance should be taught in, you know, junior high and high school.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that is necessary for a household budget, and you know, and work and building of everything. So yeah, second thing is yes, over a period of a year or a semester, have them build up their business and have them go around and try to sell their product to others and try to sign deals with others, and you know, that would be fantastic. And then show them A, how difficult it is, and B, put their ideas to practice, because through making mistakes, you have this initial idea, and then you start doing it in real life, and then you make mistakes, and then you pivot that idea and you change it based on
Mm-hmm.
the mistake you've made.
Usually, I think it is a great idea because one of the challenge that I think we like to teach this. Okay, we don't provide opportunity for them to test it, but meanwhile they really don't know how to pivot it because sometimes we really fall in love with the idea, like you know the term "kill your darlings." So people don't want to change it. We become stubborn not to change the idea, and we try to find
Mm-hmm.
excuses not to change the idea. It is not successful because people don't understand our product. We should let them to understand the product. But you tell them, you know, hey, if you have been spending a couple of years, maybe there's no problem about explaining to the people, but the problem with your
Mm-hmm.
product, the way you package, the way you try to uh, create, deliver, and capture the value. So it is really, I think we are not teaching how to pivot it, like learn from the failures and adapt. So this is interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely an approach that is necessary.
Thank you very much. It's fantastic always to talk to you, and
Always.
I wish you a great time in Belgrade.
Thank you, Serdar.
everybody. Dr. Dio connects to Kamran Namdar, senior lecturer at Melardar University. He's at Westeros right now. Thank you very much for joining. How are you?
Thank you so much. As always, very happy to be in your company.
Thank you very much. So last time when we had discussion, we were talking about the way that we educate is not actually helping to the society. We start to have a phase that we are destroying the environment, destroying the society that we have built in. How did we end up with this situation?
That's a really good question, isn't it? And of
hard
course,
question. Sorry.
It's a hard question also, and I don't know if I have the or if there is even one right answer. I think there are many different ways of looking at this. I think one way that I personally look at it is that this is the outcome of a long process that started with the Age of Enlightenment in Europe. And as you know, back in the late 17th and 18th century, and during 18th century, there was this movement in Europe where men of science, in a way, revolted against the authority of the church. And the idea was that, okay, yes. You can.
That's I want to have a parenthesis. Still, when we do PhD defense in Sweden, we nail it. For example, at the universities, we nail it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Just to declare.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly. So essentially, what happened? There was like a divorce between science and rationality and the theology of the church. Now, I think this was a very good thing, as you know, divorce is not a good thing in general, but sometimes if you have a relationship where one very cruelly dominates the other, then it's the only way forward. And this freedom that science and rationality gained in this way, then of course led to this tremendous development of science and technology in Europe and then in the West in general. Now, as we have said before, this has been a very good thing in many ways, but we as the children of this divorce are also suffering from certain things. And I think what has happened is that what initially was just the divorce of science from the dogmatics of the church has become a divide between scientific and rational thinking on the one hand and every kind of existential, ethical, and even aesthetic thinking on the other. And I think that it's this division that has been very destructive for humanity, because science and rationality on their own, without having an existential and ethical and even aesthetical anchoring, do not make people happy. They don't necessarily help to bring the best out of us as human beings. They don't help us to realize our true human potential. And in fact, I think we can see that what has happened in the world is that human beings have more and more become objects and means for a development, the end of which is material prosperity for its own sake. And it's very interesting because if you look at
do we say like this? Okay, get this education, you will have this type of, you will come to this level of richness, that you will have material stuff in your life, and you are going to produce these materials for the business regardless of considering ethical consequences.
Yes, exactly. An existential consequence. I mean, this is an extreme and a single example, but I think it embodies to me very much what I'm trying to say. If you think of the very tragic incidents of this Swedish, well-known, internationally known disc jockey, Avicii,
yes,
who committed suicide a couple of years ago.
I was shocked, now, and I really like to listen.
Exactly. It was shocking. Amazing. I mean, of course, any young person doing such a thing, or any person taking their own life, is a shocking and a tragic event. But what was especially shocking is that this was a young person that by any outward standards was the embodiment of what everybody is after. He was rich, he was famous, he was popular, he was successful in his career,
handsome,
and yet
everything.
He was handsome. He had exactly. He was the embodiment of what just about everybody younger than him is sort of striving for, and yet I think his family said that the reason he did this was exactly because he felt this existential emptiness. And we can see this not only in a country like Sweden. Currently, the statistics show that about 50% of children and young people in Sweden suffer from some form of mental problem. It can
And
be
I think
depression, it can be stress, it can be loneliness,
so.
whatever.
I think if we have these numbers in Sweden, it might be much higher in other countries, because other countries they don't do proper studies maybe, or they don't register statistics properly.
Yeah,
So which
yeah,
means we have an existential problem, because if our young generation is in this situation, what is going to happen to humanity?
exactly. So I think all of this somehow shows, and I think, I mean, I'm not revealing anything that thinking people wouldn't have thought about, is that setting these material standards as sort of criteria for development and success alone is very detrimental to human development and even human happiness. So we should be thinking in our society and in our educational system, what are those things that really lead to our development, our flourishing, our happiness as humans, both individually and collectively, because there are these two aspects which are interrelated. We need, see, one of the things that schools seem to never teach young people is to understand who they are. At school, we learn everything about molecules, about grammatical rules, about, I don't know, capitals of countries, but we learn very little about who we are and how we can develop what we are or what we can be. So that inner development combined with how we can transform and serve society rather than just think of our own personal good, I think these are the great possibilities and challenges of our society and our education at this stage of human development.
Thank you very much. It is really stunning. When I think, is it like this? Because when you talk about development, so which means your definition of development is different. So it is not materialist development, it is not economical development. Am I right? I really want to clarify before
Exactly.
we finish this
Yes,
conversation.
exactly. Material, economic, technical development should all be means towards true human development. And we have to discuss more. What does it mean to develop as humanity? What is to be a human being? And what serves human burgeoning. And I think this pandemic has helped us really to, the thing that people are now, at least in countries like Sweden, have suffered most about is not just, loss of money or jobs and so forth, but this loss of human contact. And we are starting to see that, the most important thing really in our lives is the kind of relationships that we have with other people. So yes, but I think we need to discuss these things more and more and see what is our true source and what is the true definition of development and our human becoming and our human happiness.
Thank you very much for joining. Have a nice day.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, I hope you had a great time at Dr. Zero Show, and if you want other people to hear it, please follow me at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Don't forget to follow Reportare, and don't forget to follow Dr. Zero Show. If you have any suggestions, recommendations, please get in touch with me. I will be glad to communicate with you and listen what you suggest. See you. Bye.